From tuna casserole to beef stroganoff, the 1970s kitchen was sizzling with flavor and frugal genius. Many faded from menus, but their taste never left. These are 25 classics from the 70s that still pack the same delicious punch decades later. In the 1970s, stuffed bell peppers were a dinner table favorite, practical, colorful, and hearty enough to feed the whole family without breaking the bank. The process was straightforward, but full of love. Glossy green peppers were carefully hollowed out, their tops set aside like little hats. Inside went a comforting mixture of browned ground beef, cooked white rice, onions, and rich tomato sauce, seasoned just right. The peppers stood proudly in a baking dish, sometimes topped with a scattering of cheese, and baked until tender while the filling bubbled away. This was a meal that didn't need sides. Everything you wanted was tucked neatly into that edible bowl. Busy parents loved them because they could make a big batch on Sunday, freeze them, and pull out dinner in minutes. Today, the idea is just as useful. Swap the rice for quinoa or cauliflower rice for a lighter twist. Use turkey or lentils for a different protein, and fresh herbs for a brighter flavor. But no matter how you update them, the feeling of pulling a tray of stuffed peppers from the oven and serving them family style will always bring back that same 1970s comfort. The longevity of a creamy potato salad is unmatched by many other side dishes. It begins with tender cubes of boiled potato still warm enough to absorb flavor. Once cooled slightly, they're folded together with mayonnaise, a touch of mustard for tang, crisp celery for crunch, and diced boiled eggs for richness. Some home cooks add onions or pickles, while others keep it simple and smooth. Served chilled, it's the perfect partner to grilled meats, fried chicken, or picnic sandwiches. The appeal is in its balance: soft potatoes against creamy dressing, a little zip from the mustard, and the satisfying bite of celery. It's one of those recipes that works in any decade because it's endlessly adaptable. Swap in Greek yogurt for a lighter twist, or sprinkle fresh herbs like dill or parsley for a burst of brightness. Whether scooped onto a plate at a summer BBQ or served from a big bowl at a family reunion, potato salad remains the kind of comfort food people return to for seconds without thinking twice. Quiche Lorraine made its grand entrance into American kitchens during the 70s, riding the wave of French-inspired cooking that suddenly made brunch feel glamorous. The foundation was a buttery pastry crust, blind-baked to a golden crisp. Into this went a silky custard of beaten eggs, heavy cream, and crisp, smoky bacon, all blended with Swiss cheese for a nutty richness. Once baked, the filling sets into a tender, savory pie that can be served warm from the oven or at room temperature, making it perfect for brunches, ladies' luncheons, or light dinners. It had a touch of sophistication without ever being fussy, one of those recipes that felt fancy but was still simple enough to make on a Sunday morning. In many homes, it was the dish you'd bring to a potluck if you wanted to impress without spending hours in the kitchen. Today, its versatility keeps it alive. You can fold in roasted vegetables, swap bacon for smoked salmon, or play with cheeses to make it your own. But no matter the variation, Quiche Lorraine still carries that whisper of the 1970s when a homemade quiche meant you were serving something just a little bit special. In the 1970s, no neighborhood potluck or holiday buffet was complete without a shimmering Jell-O mold at the center of the table. These wobbly creations started with bright flavored gelatin, often cherry red, lime green, or orange. Once the gelatin had begun to set, in went the fruit: canned peach slices, halved grapes, pineapple tidbits, and always a few jewel-like maraschino cherries. Poured into a fluted mold, it was chilled until firm, then released onto a platter and crowned with a fluffy cloud of whipped topping. It wasn't just dessert, it was edible decor. Kids loved the jiggle and the bursts of sweet fruit, while grown-ups appreciated how easy it was to make and transport. Some molds even had a creamy layer, made by folding in whipped topping or cream cheese, giving them a marbled effect. Today, you can revive this retro showstopper with fresh fruit, natural gelatin, and less sugar, or make it a playful nod to the past for a themed party. Whether you keep it classic or modernize it, a Jell-O mold still has the power to spark smiles, proof that some of the most unforgettable 1970s recipes weren't complicated at all. Sloppy Joes are the definition of casual comfort. Ground beef is browned in a skillet, then simmered in a tangy, sweet savory sauce made from tomato sauce or ketchup, a bit of brown sugar, Worcestershire sauce, and spices. The result is a thick, saucy filling that's piled high onto soft hamburger buns, the juices soaking slightly into the bread. They're called sloppy for a reason. No one eats them neatly, and that's part of the fun. Kids love them for their bold, craveable flavor. Parents loved how quickly they came together on busy weeknights. A simple green salad or potato chips on the side was all it took to make a meal. They've stood the test of time because they're adaptable. Swap the beef for ground turkey, pulled pork, or even plant-based crumbles, and the result is just as satisfying. Bring them out at a casual get-together, and you'll see people laughing, leaning over plates, and wiping sauce from their fingers exactly the way it's meant to be enjoyed. Beef Stroganoff was the height of cozy sophistication in many 1970s kitchens. The tender beef strips, often sirloin or round steak, were first quickly browned in oil to lock in the juices, then simmered in a robust sauce prepared with onions, mushrooms, and sour cream. The dish was generously served over wide egg noodles, allowing the sauce to seep into each bite. The sour cream gave a slight tang, while the mushrooms contributed to a full-bodied earthy flavor that made you feel both hearty and comforted. In many homes, stroganoff was a weekend dinner, something you lingered over while the house filled with the scent of onions sizzling in butter. Many families put a splash of sherry or Worcestershire sauce in their stroganoff to stir in some more flavor depth. While it was considered a bit fancy back then, it was also practical, stretching a modest amount of beef into a filling family meal. Today, it works just as well with chicken, pork, or even portobello mushrooms for a meatless version. But no matter how you prepare it, one forkful is enough to bring back memories of 1970s dinners, where comfort and flavor were the only rules. Few appetizers have the timeless elegance of a shrimp cocktail. Plump shrimps are gently poached until just cooked, then chilled to lock in their tender, juicy bite. They're typically served perched around a glass or platter, with a bright wedge of lemon and a bowl of cocktail sauce in the center. The sauce itself is a tangy sweet mix of ketchup and horseradish, with optional dashes of hot sauce for a little kick. Part of the charm is how easy it is to prepare. No complicated cooking, no lengthy prep, yet it still feels special when it arrives at the table. In its heyday, it was a dinner party classic, the kind of starter that signaled something a bit more upscale was on the way. Today, it still holds its place, whether at holiday gatherings or summer cookouts. Experimenting with spicy chili lime sauces or creamy garlic dips can give it a fresh twist, but at its core, shrimp cocktail remains the kind of appetizer that disappears quickly, leaving only a pile of tails and happy guests. Bright, sweet, and cheerfully old-fashioned pineapple upside-down cake was a sunny slice of the tropics in a 1970s kitchen. Melted butter and brown sugar were used to coat the bottom of a cake pan to form the caramel covering that has given this confection its fame. Then a beautiful array of canned pineapple slices came into view, a maraschino cherry in the center of each, like jewels in a crown. Once the fruit is covered by yellow cake batter over it, the sugar melted and combined with the pineapple juice to form a shiny golden glaze as it baked. The real magic happened when the cake was flipped out of the pan, revealing its beautiful, sticky sweet top. It was a dessert that looked as good as it tasted, moist, buttery, and fragrant with pineapple. Many 1970s cooks swore by a boxed cake mix to save time, but the charm of the recipe was in its presentation. Today, you can make it with fresh pineapple, a touch of brown butter, and perhaps a sprinkle of sea salt to balance the sweetness. Still, the joy of slicing into one and seeing those sunny rings will always be pure vintage comfort. Once a thing in the 1970s, fondue was more than just a meal. It was a social ritual for plates piled high with laughter and conversation and indulgence. Dinner parties inevitably started with a large gleaming pot at the center of the table with flames pattering underneath. Long, slender forks would remain poised for action beside the pot. Guests, like moths to flame, would crowd around the pot's aroma. As for cheese fondue, it felt almost ritualistic. Gruyere and Emmental cheeses were grated and melted slowly with a heavy size of crisp white wine and a touch of garlic, amalgamating to a molten, fragrant goodness. The first cube of crusty bread was always the favorite to dunk in the melted cheese. It was golden brown on the outside, soft on the inside, bursting with flavor. As the evening went on, we had all moved from spice to sweet. The sweet first was fondue, a peppermint fondue, a chocolate and thick cream, and something fermented on the top layer. They nibbled on marshmallows, banana slices, strawberries, and chunks of buttery pound cake. Fondue was about slowing down, staying at the table, and sharing little moments, not just about eating. Even though fashion has changed, fondue's enchantment endures because it elevates a straightforward dinner to a memorable occasion. The 7-layer salad was as much decoration as it was food, often assembled in a clear trifle dish so each colorful layer could be admired. It started with a base of crunchy lettuce, then layers of peas, chopped vegetables, shredded cheese, bacon bits, and mayonnaise layered on top to keep it fresh. The last layer included more cheese or a sprinkling of herbs. The great thing about this salad is that you can make it well in advance and keep it chilled until it is time to serve. A great salad for parties, potlucks, family get-togethers, etc. Guests enjoyed digging their spoons down through the layers, making sure to get a bit of everything on each forkful. While its original form was simple and hearty, modern versions often add roasted vegetables, avocado, or gourmet cheeses for extra flavor. Whether classic or updated, it still works because it's both a visual centerpiece and a fresh, filling dish that invites people back for seconds. Italian for Hunter's style, chicken Cacciatore simmered its way into countless American kitchens in the 1970s. It began with chicken pieces, skin on for flavor, browned in olive oil until golden. Into the same pot went onions, bell peppers, garlic, tomatoes, and a handful of herbs, all mingling into a rich rustic sauce. Sometimes a splash of red wine deepened the flavor, and the dish would gently bubble away until the chicken was fall off the bone tender. Served over pasta, rice, or even with a hunk of crusty bread, it was a warm embrace in a bowl. The appeal went beyond the taste. It was the kind of meal you could prepare in the afternoon and let simmer, filling the house with an aroma that made the family wander into the kitchen early. It still works beautifully for a slow Sunday dinner, when there's time to let the flavors weave together like a good story told over and over. This dish might be the most unapologetically practical of the 1970s classics. Tuna Noodle Casserole was born from pantry staples: canned tuna, egg noodles, and cream of mushroom soup. A bag of frozen peas often found its way in, along with a scattering of breadcrumbs or crushed potato chips for a crispy top. It was comfort food that didn't need ceremony, just a bubbling, creamy bake that made sure no one left the table hungry. It was perfect for weeknights, when time was short and the budget even shorter. Kids loved the mild, creamy flavor. Parents loved how easily it came together. And while the ingredients may have been simple, the feeling it brought to the table was anything but. Dress it up with fresh mushrooms, a splash of cream, or even Greek yogurt, and it's proof that humble beginnings can still make a satisfying, soul-warming meal. Ambrosia salad was pure 1970s sweetness served in a glass bowl, often appearing at potlucks, picnics, and church suppers. Its name promised something heavenly, and for many it delivered mandarin oranges, pineapple chunks, mini marshmallows, and shredded coconut, all folded together in a soft, creamy dressing of sour cream or Cool Whip. Sometimes a handful of cherries or grapes would make an appearance, adding pops of color. It wasn't heavy or complicated. It was a cheerful companion to grilled chicken, ham, or just about anything else. One spoonful was like taking a tropical holiday without leaving the backyard. There's still something charming about a dessert you can make in 10 minutes that draws smiles before anyone's even had a bite. If there was any emblem of American home cooking in the 1970s, it was meatloaf. Every family probably had their own spin on it, but in general, meatloaf was ground beef with breadcrumbs, eggs, onions, and some additional seasoning molded into a loaf and cooked until juicy perfection. The addition that made it special was a glossy ketchup glaze sludge over the top of it before putting it in the oven, which would turn into a sweet and tangy glaze when caramelized. Meatloaf was practical, stretching a pound or two of beef into a full dinner, and it was comforting. It was the kind of dish that made a kitchen feel like home. Leftovers were held in just as high of esteem and were often sliced and eaten for sandwiches the next day. Swap the beef for turkey, blend in some vegetables, or add BBQ sauce for a smoky twist. The meatloaf will still hold its place at the table, quietly reminding you why it never went out of style. Baked Alaska was the dessert that made guests stop mid-conversation. At first glance, it looked like a snowy mountain of meringue, but inside was a cold surprise, layers of ice cream resting on a soft cake base. The magic came from the contrast. The exterior meringue, whipped to glossy peaks, was quickly browned under high heat or a kitchen torch, creating a warm, slightly crisp shell. The ice cream stayed frozen inside thanks to the insulating layer, making each slice a hot and cold marvel. It was often made for birthdays, anniversaries, or any occasion that called for a bit of drama at the table. What made it truly memorable wasn't just the taste, but the sense of theater when it was sliced open. That same wow factor still works today, whether you stick with vanilla and chocolate or go bold with flavors like matcha, salted caramel, or raspberry sorbet. It's a dessert that invites a little showmanship, and when it arrives at the table, everyone leans in. Spaghetti alla Puttanesca is a pasta dish that doesn't whisper. It speaks boldly from the first bite. A quick sauté of garlic in olive oil forms the base, then crushed tomatoes join the pan, followed by briny capers, chopped olives, and anchovies that melt into the sauce, adding an umami depth. The aroma alone is enough to draw people to the kitchen. In its day, it felt adventurous, a pasta that wasn't content with just tomato and basil. The sauce comes together in the time it takes to cook the spaghetti, making it a weeknight favorite for those who want big flavor fast. It is a mix of salty, tangy, and slightly spicy notes that keeps every forkful interesting. It's one of those dishes that proves that speed doesn't mean sacrificing complexity, perfect for when dinner needs to be both fast and memorable. Zucchini bread effectively transformed the innocent garden vegetable into an aromatic, delectable loaf that felt like dessert instead of a healthy option. Grated zucchini is folded into a trio of flour, sugar, eggs, and oil with a little cinnamon and nutmeg for seasoning. Mix in chopped nuts, and the zucchini melts right into the bread, leaving it tender and mildly sweet. Originally embraced during the 1970s health food wave, it offered a way to enjoy baked goods while feeling just a little virtuous. The smell of it baking, warm spice and sweetness, still signals comfort. It's equally at home sliced for breakfast with coffee, tucked into a lunchbox, or served as an afternoon snack. Over time, bakers have played with the recipe, adding chocolate chips for indulgence, or swapping refined sugar for honey, or maple syrup for a more natural sweetness. Whether classic or updated, zucchini bread remains a simple pleasure, easy to make, rewarding to share, and somehow always gone faster than expected. Deviled eggs have been gracing party tables for decades, their appeal rooted in elegance, thrift, and pure simplicity. It began with perfectly boiled eggs, their shells peeled away to reveal firm whites and creamy golden yolks. The yolks were mashed to a silky texture, blended with mayonnaise for richness and mustard for tang, then spooned or piped for a touch of flair back into their halves. A dusting of paprika added a warm, smoky accent and that signature visual pop. In the 1970s, they were a hostess's quiet secret weapon. Affordable, attractive, and guaranteed to vanish quickly from any platter. With their versatility, they were suitable for any occasion, from church socials or backyard cookouts to lavish cocktail parties. While some cooks advocated a pinch of sweet pickle relish, others went for a mild hit of cayenne. Every bite delivered creamy, savory comfort in one bite. They weren't just snacks, they were conversation starters, easy to grab without pausing the laughter or flow of a gathering. And in a world of elaborate hors d'oeuvres, deviled eggs have held their place for a reason. They are timeless, endlessly adaptable, and always welcome. In the 1970s, carrot cake was a dessert that wore a halo and a bad girl personality. Riding high on the natural foods movement, it felt noble with its shredded carrots and crunchy walnuts while being extremely indulgent. The batter boasting warm cinnamon and maybe a hint of nutmeg, baked into soft layers that filled the kitchen with an inviting aroma of home. Once cooled, those layers were thickly swathed with cream cheese frosting, tangy, smooth, and just sweet enough to balance the cake's earthiness. Carrot cake wasn't a dessert you put together quickly. It was a gift of love made for church potlucks, birthdays, and Sunday dinners. Bakers often made it their own by mixing in crushed pineapple for moistness or coconut for richness. The finished cake was typically garnished with a sprinkle of nuts or delicate piped swirls. Carrot cake wasn't only a feast for the palate, it was a feast for the eyes. Each slice carried a balance of soft crumb, gentle spice, and creamy frosting that kept forks moving back for more. Carrot cake may have been born from a healthier era, but its staying power has always come from pure, unrepentant flavor. Eggplant Parmesan layers, tender slices of fried eggplant with rich marinara sauce, mozzarella and Parmesan layered together and baked until all the cheese becomes a golden pool of bubbling goo. The eggplant is sliced, salted, and dried to remove any bitter flavoring before dipping in breadcrumbs and lightly browning. It is traditionally fried, but still provides the same, if lighter texture, if baked without disrupting the crispy shell. The texture of eggplant is excellent. Its crunchy bite, gooey cheese, sensitive flesh, and depth of flavor from the tart tomato sauce make for a mouth-watering bite. Eggplant Parmesan, for those wanting a hearty meal, is a great meatless main dish that could also come alongside spaghetti or crusty bread. Over the years, it became a comfort food and a staple for a dinner party meal. Eggplant Parmesan is fantastic in a family-style meal straight from the baking dish or plated up for an individual meal with a sprig of fresh basil. Eggplant Parmesan is a pleasant acknowledgement of comfort feelings that originates from Italian food, where diners will want more when finished with their portion. The Cheeseball is a retro party star that still knows how to work a room. Popular in living rooms and dining tables in the 1970s, it was a social food, something you could set down in the middle of the table and watch disappear as conversations carried on. At its heart, a cheeseball begins with a base of rich cream cheese blended with sharp cheddar, creating a balance of smooth creaminess and bold, tangy bite. Into this mixture went herbs like parsley or chives, spices for depth, and often a dash of Worcestershire sauce for that savory edge. Shaped into a neat sphere, it was rolled in chopped nuts. Pecans or walnuts were the classics, adding texture and a toasty aroma. After a good chill in the fridge, the cheeseball emerged firm, sliceable, and irresistibly spreadable. Crackers were the go-to companion, though crisp celery sticks or pretzels sometimes made an appearance. One of the cheeseball's charms was its adaptability. Hosts could dress it up with goat cheese, dried cranberries, and fresh rosemary for the holidays, or make playful seasonal shapes like pumpkins or pine cones. Portable, make ahead, and perfect for grazing, It wasn't just food, it was an icebreaker, a centerpiece, and a delicious excuse to linger at the snack table. Cabbage soup has worn many hats: diet fad, frugal meal, winter warmer, but its enduring charm lies in its simplicity. At its core, it's a simmering pot of chopped cabbage, carrots, celery, onions, and tomatoes, cooked in a seasoned broth until the vegetables are tender and the flavors meld together. In the 1970s, it was linked to quick-fix diet plans, but beyond that trend, it's a naturally healthy, budget-friendly dish that's endlessly adaptable. The mild sweetness of cabbage balances beautifully with the tang of tomato, and the longer it sits, the better the flavor becomes. Serve it as a light starter, or bulk it up with beans, lentils, or shredded chicken for a more filling meal. It's the kind of soup that works for batch cooking. Make a big pot on Sunday and enjoy it for days. With a slice of crusty bread on the side, cabbage soup proves that comfort doesn't need to be complicated. In the 1970s, oatmeal raisin cookies were the unsung heroes in a dessert world rife with options. Wholesome, unpretentious, and comforting. They utilized basic pantry staples: oats for heartiness, raisins to add natural sweetness, brown sugar for caramelization, and cinnamon for warmth. Butter was creamed until light, then blended with sugar before the dry ingredients joined in, creating a dough that smelled like comfort even before it baked. In the oven, the cookies spread just enough to form crisp edges while keeping their chewy centers. Pulled out warm, they were the kind you grabbed straight from the cooling rack, burning your fingers just a little because patience was impossible. They filled lunchboxes, coffee breaks, and after-school snack plates with equal ease. Some bakers elevated them with chopped nuts for crunch or a splash of molasses for deeper flavor. While chocolate chip cookies grabbed the spotlight, oatmeal raisin quietly built a loyal following, those who preferred their sweetness with a touch of earthiness and a nod toward tradition. One bite brought back the feeling of sitting at a well-worn kitchen table, the afternoon light slanting in, and nothing more pressing than the next cookie. Few dishes could gather a family faster than the promise of lasagna bubbling away in the oven. In the 1970s, it was the heart of Italian-American home cooking, built layer by careful layer, each one holding the weight of love and tradition. The ritual started with simmering a rich marinara, awash with garlic, onions, and herbs, and sheets of pasta softened in boiling water. In between was clouds of creamy ricotta, shreds of mozzarella, and either savory meat sauce or plenty of vegetables. As the dish baked, the sauce bubbled through the seams, the cheese melted into gooey strands, and the scent wafted from the kitchen like an open invitation. Lasagna was not just dinner, it was a showstopper, cut into bricks of goodness and served with warm bread to scoop up every last bit of sauce. Leftovers, if they existed, were even better the next day. Some homes adhered strictly to the meat-filled version, while others had opted to explore the delicious flavors of spinach, mushrooms, or other vegetables slipped between the sheets. Regardless of what filled the lasagna, it intended the same promises: comfort, prosperity, and the joy of lingering just a little too long at a table. In the dinner party culture of the 1970s, Beef Wellington was the showpiece that proved a host's skill and daring. Inside was a delectable beef tenderloin that was seared on the outside to retain juices encased in chewy pâté and mushroom duxelles, then wrapped in puff with careful smoothed folds, looking almost like a present to open at the table. As the treat baked, the pastry turned flaky crisp and sealed the aromatics of meat, mushrooms, and butter inside. Served whole, it drew a hush as the knife sliced through the crust to reveal the rosy, perfectly cooked center. It was a dish that demanded precision. Undercook the pastry, and you had soggy dough; overcook the beef, and you lost the magic. For those who mastered it, the reward was admiration and empty plates. Whether for Christmas, anniversaries, or milestone celebrations, Beef Wellington transformed dinner into theater, offering not just a meal, but an experience. Even now, its combination of elegance and indulgence makes it an unforgettable centerpiece. These 1970s recipes have stood the test of time, proving that good flavor never goes out of style. If you enjoyed this journey through dishes that still really work today, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more timeless tastes.